If Earth were a grain of salt, the Sun would be a grapefruit sitting 50 feet away. Neptune? Neptune would be half a mile down the street. And the nearest star, Proxima Centauri, would be another grapefruit sitting in a different city, 2,500 miles away. Every poster you've ever seen, every diagram, every map of the solar system, they all lied to you, not in a small way. They lied in a way that fundamentally broke your understanding of what space actually is. Because space isn't crowded. It's not a busy neighborhood of planets and stars all hanging out close together. It's empty. Devastatingly, incomprehensibly empty. And today, we're going to show you just how empty it really is. Let's start with something you think you understand. The solar system. You've seen the diagrams. Planets lined up in a neat little row. The Sun, then Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune. Maybe some orbital lines drawn around them in perfect circles. It looks manageable. It looks like the planets are neighbors, all living on the same street. That's a lie. Look at this. If the Sun were a grapefruit, about 4 inches across, sitting in the middle of downtown Los Angeles, Earth would be a grain of salt about 50 feet away. Not a marble, not a pea, a grain of salt. Mars, another grain of salt, about 75 feet away. Jupiter would be a small grape sitting 250 feet away. That's almost the length of a football field. Saturn would be 2 football fields away. And Neptune, the outermost planet, would be almost half a mile away from that grapefruit sun. Now picture yourself standing in downtown LA next to that grapefruit. Look around. Most of the planets are so small you can't even see them. They're grains of salt and tiny pebbles scattered across blocks and blocks of absolutely nothing. No rocks, no dust, no debris, just empty space. That's the solar system. That's our neighborhood. And we haven't even left the city yet. Now, let's talk about the nearest star. Proxima Centauri is the closest star to our Sun. It's 4.24 light years away. In astronomical terms, that's right next door. But let's stay with our grapefruit scale. If the Sun is a grapefruit in Los Angeles, where would Proxima Centauri be? New York City. Another grapefruit. Sitting in New York, about 2,500 miles away. Look at what that means. Everything between those 2 grapefruits is absolutely nothing. Just cold, dark, empty space stretching from coast to coast. No planets, no asteroids, no comets, nothing. You could fit thousands of entire solar systems in the gap between our Sun and the next closest star, and they'd never even come close to touching. This is what space actually is. It's not a highway of stars and planets. It's an empty desert so vast that even light, the fastest thing in the universe, takes over 4 years to cross the distance between neighbors. And if you're sitting there thinking, wait, this completely changes how I picture space. Yeah, hit like, subscribe if you want more of these cosmic reality checks. Because trust me, it gets worse. We think of light as instantaneous. Flip a switch, the room lights up. Shine a flashlight, the beam appears instantly. But on a cosmic scale, light crawls. Light from the Sun takes 8 minutes to reach Earth. When you look at the Sun, don't actually look at the Sun. You're seeing it as it was 8 minutes ago. If it suddenly vanished, we wouldn't know for 8 minutes. To reach Neptune, at the edge of our solar system, about 4 hours. To reach Proxima Centauri, our nearest neighbor, 4.24 years. Think about what that means. If someone on a planet orbiting Proxima Centauri sent us a message right now, traveling at the speed of light, we wouldn't receive it until 2009. If we wanted to reply, they wouldn't get our response until 2033. That's not a conversation. That's a time capsule. And here's the thing that should haunt you. most stars you see in the night sky. Their light has been traveling for decades, centuries, or thousands of years. Some of those stars might not even exist anymore. They could have exploded into supernovae hundreds of years ago, and we just haven't gotten the news yet, because the light from that explosion is still making its way across space. You're not looking at the universe as it is. You're looking at ghosts, ancient light from objects that might already be dead. But here's where it gets genuinely disturbing. Let's zoom out even further. Let's talk about galaxies. Our Milky Way contains somewhere between 100 and 400 billion stars. It's about 100,000 light years across. Beyond it, there are billions of other galaxies scattered throughout the universe, except they're not evenly distributed. Galaxies cluster together in some regions, forming these massive cosmic cities. And then there are other regions where there's almost nothing. These empty regions are called voids, and some of them are so incomprehensibly empty that they break your sense of what empty even means. The Boötis Void is one of the largest known voids in the universe. It's roughly 330 million light-years in diameter. Based on the average density of galaxies in the universe, a region that size should contain about 2,000 galaxies. When astronomers looked at the Boötis Void, they found 60 galaxies where there should be 2,000. The rest is just nothing. Darkness. An almost perfect void. Now here's the thought experiment that should genuinely terrify you. If the Milky Way had formed in the center of the Boötis Void instead of where it is now, what would human history look like? We wouldn't see other galaxies nearby. We wouldn't see galaxy clusters or superclusters. We'd look out into space with our most powerful telescopes and see almost nothing. Just a handful of faint, distant smudges scattered across an otherwise black sky. We probably wouldn't have discovered other galaxies existed until the 1960s, when telescope technology finally got good enough to detect those incredibly faint objects. For thousands of years of human civilization, all of our philosophy, all of our religion, all of our science, we would have thought the Milky Way was the entire universe. We'd have no evidence of the Big Bang, no understanding of cosmic expansion, no idea that the universe had a beginning or that it's still growing. We would think we were floating alone in an eternal, unchanging void. And we would be completely wrong, but we'd have no way to know that. That's the terror of cosmic scale. Our entire understanding of reality is dependent on where we happen to be sitting. If we'd been born somewhere else, somewhere lonelier, we might never have figured out where we came from. The universe could have hidden its own history from us, simply by putting us in the wrong neighborhood. So, let's put all of this together. The solar system is mostly empty. The space between stars is almost entirely empty. The space between galaxies is mostly empty. Even the crowded parts of the universe, the galaxy clusters, the superclusters, the cosmic web, they're mostly empty too. When you zoom out far enough, the universe isn't a collection of stuff. It's a collection of nothing, with tiny little specks of matter scattered so impossibly far apart, they might as well not exist. And yet, every diagram you've ever seen compresses all of that emptiness down into something that fits on a poster or a screen. The distances get shrunk, the sizes get exaggerated, the planets get lined up in a neat little row, because if you drew them to actual scale, you wouldn't be able to see most of them. We do this because we have to. Our brains can't process the real scale. We can't visualize what 4.24 light-years actually means. We can't imagine 330 million light-years of almost nothing. So we lie. We create maps that make the universe feel comprehensible, manageable, close. But it's not close. It's the opposite of close. Here's another way to think about it. The observable universe, the part we can theoretically see, is about 93 billion light-years across. If you tried to build a scale model where the sun was the size of a grain of sand, the edge of the observable universe would still be about 6,000 light-years away. At that scale, you'd still need light-years to measure the model. The scale is so broken, so impossibly vast, that even our analogies collapse under their own weight. Look, this is why the scale of the universe is a lie. Not because scientists are trying to deceive you, but because accurately representing the scale would make it impossible to see anything. If you made a to-scale diagram of the solar system and hung it on a wall, you'd see the sun, and then you'd see nothing else, because the planets would be too small and too far away to fit in the frame. If you made a to-scale map of the galaxy, the sun would be invisible. You'd be looking at 100,000 light-years of mostly empty space, with a few faint smudges where stars cluster. If you made a to-scale map of the universe, galaxies would be nearly invisible specks scattered across a void so vast that most of the map would just be black. So we compress it. We shrink the distances. We enlarge the objects. We make it fit on a page so we can point at it and say, "This is the universe." But that's not the universe. The universe is the emptiness between those objects, the vast, incomprehensible distances that separate everything from everything else. The universe is mostly nothing. And here's the final thing I want you to sit with. If the universe is mostly empty, if 99.999% of space is just void, then you, sitting here right now, breathing, watching this, you are the rarest thing in the cosmos. You are a collection of atoms that somehow organized itself into something capable of wonder, something that can look up at the night sky and ask, why is it so empty? Every thought you have, every breath you take, every moment of consciousness, it's all happening on a tiny grain of salt, floating in an ocean of nothing, asking questions about the void. Space isn't just empty because there's nothing there. It's empty so that the few things that do exist, stars, planets, people, can have room to matter. And right now, in this brief window of cosmic time, you exist. You're awake. You're aware. You're the universe looking at itself and realizing just how alone it is. So the next time you see a diagram of the solar system with the planets lined up in a row, remember, that's not real. The next time you see a picture of stars scattered across the Milky Way like a dense cloud, remember, most of that is empty. The next time you look up at the night sky and see those points of light, remember, they're separated by distances so vast that even light takes years to cross them. We live in an empty universe, a quiet universe, a lonely universe. And every map you've ever seen has been lying to you about it, not because the truth is too scary, but because the truth is too big to fit on a poster. The scale of the universe is a lie. But it's a lie we need, because the truth, the real honest truth, is too vast for our minds to hold. Keep looking up, and remember, it's emptier than you think.